welcome. Thank you so much for being here. It's really inspiring to see you guys here. I hope you guys are excited about what's happening and what we're busy with as we are. So we're just going to quickly show you a quick video about city gates and then what we do, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of a context and background while you're still eating, and then we'll continue getting our speakers up here after we've done an introduction. Right, so enjoy your food while we continue. That's just a little bit of a summary of what we've started to put together over the last 3 months. It's basically a culmination of conversations we've had over the last year, a little bit more than a year even, just with regards to where South Africa is finding itself, where the world is finding itself, where does entrepreneurship fit into this whole picture. We look at our economy, we just had a conversation about this around the table now again. It's just looking at our unemployment rates, looking how something like COVID has now affected this and just taken it actually to a new level. And I don't think when you look at statistics, you're going to see the true picture of where our country's unemployment is actually sitting. I think someone like Christiaan that we could have a conversation with this morning might give us a little bit of a better idea on that. But just to give you a little bit of a glimpse on city gates. Thanks. So, as an entrepreneur, I think many of you will identify with this. So, not many people will understand the journey that you're going through. But very often, and most of the time, you're going through sacrifice and staying healthy and facing rejection, all the sleepless nights that you're going through. But at the top of the water is this little small iceberg initially. But you know the hours and the months and the years of sacrifice and work that's gone into that. So, a little bit of my background, I've been in the entrepreneurial startup space for the last 16 years, and that's the one thing that sparked this conversation. And I think when Ross started a series last year on work, we as children of God, and how work fits into our world and our lives, that just really sparked something within me as well, and then just taking it to a new level. And when COVID hit and we realized, yeah, our small businesses are really taking a beating, the entrepreneurs in the community are really taking a beating, people are losing their jobs. We just got around the table and we said, we need to do something. We don't know what, we don't know how it's going to look. So what you see here is sort of being put together as we go along. We're following a bit of an agile approach, and we're just putting it together as we go. But that's part of it, and that's also part of the entrepreneurial journey. Just about this, when we look at Shofar as a church, the series has sparked this, and it's really about growth in Christ. But how can we as a church be the best church we can be to the world? How can we be the best church to the community? How practical can we make this? And just for you to have some context, it's really growing in Christ as a whole. But how does that look? So it's growing in community, growing with our neighbours, growing in ourselves, growing with others, growing in work, and growing with God, obviously. And I would have loved Ross to maybe expand on that a little bit, but I think we're going to be a bit pushed for time. So basically, why have we done this? We said, we need a community of business owners, or we have a community of business owners that need support. We want to create an environment of collaboration and support where we can really come together as like-minded business owners, and we want to establish and grow impactful businesses in the community, businesses that can employ other people, businesses that can stimulate the economy, etc., etc. And then in the local community, for the local community, we see it in social media, hashtag support local business. But this is really where it becomes practical, right? So just to bring City Gates and what we do to that diagram is, on the right you'll see a community is being like-minded entrepreneurs and mentors, support and local businesses. So here we are growing you guys as entrepreneurs, and we're growing mentors alongside you to say, listen, let's journey, let's soundboard, let's have a weekly or a monthly or a quarterly meeting and see how are you measuring up, how are you growing as a person, but also as a business owner. Then at the bottom we've got our small business incubator. That's obviously still being formulated, but awesome. We have gone through, I think, 9 businesses now that we've done proper business assessments through some academic frameworks, if you want, that's relevant to the startup space, like doing business model canvases, etc. Just really talking through your business and really putting proper business strategy in place for reinventing your business going forward. Then we've got, in terms of others and self, we just say, it's a pay it forward and community impact through business. So we want to really pay it forward. So as the entrepreneurs go through this incubator program, so listen, I've sort of graduated through this program. Now I want to pay it forward to the next entrepreneur coming through. I will now become a mentor, and now we take it as a community-based incubator for the future. And then building local businesses, as I said, and then at the top, many of you might be part of our Redemptive Entrepreneurship Grow Group. We come together every 2 weeks and just work through a nice course of really growing in Christ as an entrepreneur. Right, so just lastly, before we go to our speakers, that's just to sort of bring it together for you. So we've got our citygates, citygates.web.za. If you haven't gone to the website yet, any of our entrepreneurs in the church can go and register their businesses to just give them exposure. We're trying to grow that as wide as we possibly can in the community and also in the wider community. Then mentoring, as I said, our grow group at the right at the top. Then our breakfast. This is the first one of our Entrepreneur Connect breakfasts. So we're going to try and do that every month from now onwards. And then just left at the bottom is our incubator, where we go through that growth process of business. Right, so now I've talked a lot, and hopefully I can step down now and give over to our speakers. But before I do that, here we can just go on. I just want to introduce you to our speakers. So the first one is Christiaan van den Berg. You might have heard of what they are doing. He's the founder and MD of JobJack. So Christiaan, just a little bit of background on him. He's a people-passionate pioneer. He's the co-founder and co-CEO of JobJack. He's a qualified CA by qualification, if I'm correct. So he came up with this idea of JobJack while completing his audit articles in 2017. Although he is stimulated by the business behind JobJack, he is driven by the people that are reaching, whether job seekers, companies, employees, or people simply inspired by what is happening. And then, amazingly, it's just Christiaan wants to see God's kingdom come not only in his organization, but in every company and every person's life. Then secondly, we've got Johan Troskie from our local congregation. So Johan grew up and spent his childhood on the farm. He loves that. He's also a civil engineer by qualification. He has a passion for infrastructure. I don't know what the English is for behuisingsontwikkeling. Is housing? Okay, great. So not accommodation development. Okay, so in Johan's direct words, ek wil infrastruktuur en behuising ontsluit en suksesvol lewer van die land het nodig. I think just really sums up being a practical solution, solving real world problems. Right, so guys, just want to welcome these two gentlemen, give them a hand, please, Johan and Christiaan. And we're just going to give them freedom to answer as they feel, nothing formal. And then at the end, we're going to give you guys a chance to put them on the spot, to ask them a few questions. Right. So first, you guys can choose who goes first. So the first one is, give us a short background just of your company and yourself, a bit of a background. Oh guys, sorry, I neglected to say. You guys probably expected Quibber's Lab to be here as well. Unfortunately, we got a message yesterday that he got COVID, so unfortunately he can't make it. So just if you wonder where Quibber's is, he'll hopefully join us for the next round. All right, so over to either of you.
Thanks so much for having me here. And yeah, it's such a privilege to just be a part of this. So JobJack, just a brief overview, is an online platform for entry-level jobs. So any job not requiring a qualification, let's say biometric. So from a waiter to a cashier to a general assistant. And so what we've built is basically a solution that we hope alleviates the unemployment not only in South Africa but all around the world, as opposed to where your status quo is for people in this industry looking for jobs to print out a paper CV, take a taxi, and try and job with these paper CVs at let's say 5 or 10 companies. City Press and Economist estimated cost these job seekers around 550 rand a month to look for jobs in this way, which obviously they can't do because they don't have the money to begin with. And those that can afford it only reach 5 or 10 companies. But it might be the 11th one that is the right job. So it's kind of this continual cycle of people staying in poverty and not finding jobs. On the other side, you have companies that are taking in various CVs and not reaching the people because they can't reach them to organize an interview, they don't have the time to look through all these CVs, and everything's just lagged and distorted kind of process. So we have clients that are sitting with 1,000 to 2,000 unfilled positions because they can't connect to the right people, which is ridiculous in a society where the unemployment is so high. So basically what we built is a whole online platform that is accessible via your mobile phone. So a web app. Our industry or our market does not download apps, so it's not necessary for us to do that. It's super data light, so they can access jobs from the comfort of their home, via their phone or a family's phone. Popular belief is that people don't have smartphones. Everyone has a smartphone or access to a smartphone in Karachi, in Karamani. At least one person in the family does have it. That's what our research has shown. So we have at the moment just over 110,000 users on the platform. With companies ranging from pet stores to the local deli down the road. We really get there for people to try and reach or just connect them in the best way possible. I don't know if I need to elaborate more.
Yes, Inani started off as a stock standard civil engineering consulting company with a small band of people. We saw the breakages in the delivery chain of infrastructure that bothered us. funding, project preparation, thinking the clear plans out, and then implementation and doing that responsibly. We adapted a bit so that we can fill those gaps. And that's what we're doing. Source funding, put projects together, prepare it well, do the engineering, and then make part of the implementation. Sort of migrated from civil engineering infrastructure to other infrastructure and housing delivery. That's what we do.
Awesome, thank you. The second one is, maybe you have touched on it. Give us a little bit of insight on just how you decided on a business. I know you're a civil engineer and that sort of makes sense, but what is sort of, just give us a bit of insight on your thought processes, how you thought about it, and how you actually went over into, okay, I'm going to do this now.
First. Yes, not a new concept. So it's not a clever new plan. One or two or three of us thought we could do it better. We thought we knew people that would back us in starting this up. And like I said, we saw some of the breakages in the chain and we thought we could fill those gaps and we thought that was enough to venture out and start our own thing.
Fair enough. Yeah, so about 2.5 years ago, I was busy with my articles, and I never went into the accounting space to become an accountant. The idea was always to see how I can use that knowledge in the background to solve problems for people. And so whilst doing my articles, obviously articles don't pay well. So I was always kind of hustling, seeing what I can do, selling clothes here or there. And so one day my mother-in-law asked me if I still knew a few people in varsity to help her. She needed a few waiters for an event. And I organized a few guys, and the payment just came through me. And afterwards, they asked me and their friends' friends asked me, listen, you have some more of this job. Isn't there some kind of platform where you can hear about these jobs? And I realized that unless you belong to some kind of elite WhatsApp group or Facebook group, you don't know of easy accessible job opportunities. And so I started doing some intensive research, not just in South Africa, but all around the world. And I noticed there is not a dominating player that makes easily accessible jobs or entry-level jobs accessible to people. There's no one aggregated space that allows for this. And so I just said, okay, cool, let's do a pilot or two, and I organized a few more jobs, and I saw there's really a need for it on both sides, on the company side and on the job seeker side. And that's basically where it started, and ever since we've shifted from a bit more focus on once-off jobs to more permanent jobs, but kind of covering the spectrum of all entry-level jobs.
Thanks. I think what's so awesome thing about that is that it's actually solving a problem. And if you look at what one of the definitions of entrepreneurship is actually using your other resources, whether it's natural resources, capital, etc., and putting it to work creatively to solve a problem. And both of these, and Johan sort of alluded to that, is it's not something new, but if you go and look at most of the most successful entrepreneurs and businesses out there, it's not necessarily something new. It's actually combining existing technology, existing resources, but applying it in a different way, in a creative way, in a better way, to solve that specific problem. So great, thanks for that. So now we get to, I think, a bit more of the interesting questions. So we laid a bit of a foundation. So guys, I want to ask you, what would you say has been your lowest low in your entrepreneurial journey? And together with that, sort of, just how did you navigate through that? How did you get through that lowest low?
So I actually mentioned it here just before we came up. Lowest low was probably about 3 months ago. So obviously we're in an industry that relies on people hiring people. And obviously when lockdown hit, no one was hiring anyone. To give you an example, in about March, we were exposed to about, let's say, 1,000 to maybe 2,000 jobs that we can present to people per month, new jobs per month, and that's about complete. So that's just our limited little space. I mean, and sorry, so I was a little in denial the first 3 weeks of lockdown. I was in a house full of some really optimistic and good people. And when our president, said, "Okay, cool, it's going to be another 2 weeks," I think it sank in because my partner and I were, just preparing for the worst, and that's when I knew I'd have to put in salary cuts for our entire team. And this was going to be kind of not just a little blizzard, but it's going to be an actual ice age. And so that was, we were pretty despondent. Over the past 2 years before that, we were really working to try and get a product market fit, and we thought we just had it. It was wonderful, and so that really kind of just stuck a stick in the wheel of our momentum, and we couldn't really see how we were going to weather up the storm with the limited resources that we have, and with the uncertainty of everyone around us. I mean, we're in an industry where people aren't used to spending money on entry-level hiring. People hate recruitment agents, which we aren't really, but I mean, we're associated to it, and no one is certain of their future as a company anyway. So it's kind of this triple whammy that we had to overcome. And what I remember was one of the questions how we overcame that. Through probably a few weeks of sleeplessness, but mostly prayer. And I'm really fortunate enough that my co-founder is also a follower of Christ, and so we really just went on our knees with the spiritual and support of some of our investors as well. They're really kingdom focused as well, which was just incredible. I mean, they said we're not going to give you more money, but we'll give you more prayer. So it was really just to say, God, we need wisdom. Right now, we really need wisdom. I mean, money would be great, but wisdom above all else, because you know where we need to go. And right where I'm sitting now, we are so thankful actually for what has happened till this fall. Obviously, we're not glad about the missed opportunities and the job losses, but just of what we've learned in the past few months. So we completely kind of reiterated our approach and our value offering to companies, so that at the moment we're speaking with, larger clients than would have ever opened the door for us with our initial product. It's not much different than what we usually do. In fact, it's not at all. The core is the same. It's the way we've offered it. So what we immediately did, and my co-founder is also an accountant, and so we not techies at all, but we've got a team of developers that work for us full time. And we've got such an amazing relationship. So we sat around the table and we said, cool, how are we gonna make this different? What is the ability of what we can build? We built our structure, and we did a lot of research as to how we need to kind of put together our baseline platform so that we can add on to that. And so we just said what are the possibilities and what's going to resonate with these companies in these uncertain times. And so our product offering just changed, and now we've got a lot of doors to do. Yeah.
It's actually amazing to hear. It sounds like what you had learned in 3 months, I had learned in 3 years before that. A little bit of a mirror. So if I had to say what was the lowest low, there's a series of them over 3 years. All the plans that I made, anything that I thought I put in place, to move, basically very little of that came off. And so soon after we made a move and we did what we did, everything that was there just sort of drifted away. All the projects that was lined up, and we started with cash flow issues way back then, and it almost lasted 3 years. So also in that period, maybe talk later about that, there's also some of the good stuff that happened. But what kept me through that, various things, some of it plain stubbornness, it's not good, I know. That's in our nature. But some of it just having no other choice. this is where I am. The hole behind me is this big. If I stop now, I sit with that. If I continue on, there's at least the possibility to recover. And then I've put faith from the start of the journey on. So, what do I do with that now? I started off with faith. So here I am. What do I do now? I stop. A bit of a problem. So, that's how I got through it.
If I can just add some practical aspects to what I just changed a little bit with my sleeplessness, and I mean I'm only 26, but I don't even have any more weight to lose, so that was my thing. And but what I just went through is, okay, I need to change up the way I'm living, just to any possible means of actually heightening my mental health. So doing cardio literally every day, trying to sleep 8 hours, leaving coffee and any alcohol as well, being open and frank to our team about our situation and where we are, with obviously some positive solutions. But it was really just trying to do everything to a degree that I don't add any physical stress as well to the situation that's already at hand. And then obviously most of all, we just spending much more time in the world than I would usually, because that was all the option.
Sure, amazing. And I think some of the stuff that came out now is obviously the journey with God in that, but also practical. Not to just live in a cloud kind of thing, but really just standing flat and say, Lord, I've started this journey with you. We've taken the plunge, but now how do we make that practical? How do we journey through this thing? So now, on a little bit of a lighter note, is on the flip side of that question, what's been your highest high? And obviously, as followers of Christ as well, when we hit success and when the good times come, how do you navigate through that? How do you sort of run with that? But also, if you anticipate the success that's coming, what is sort of in the back of your mind that you say to yourself, listen, what's going to make me different from anyone else out there? What's sort of my approach to having success when it comes, or if it has come?
Maybe we should wait a while when we answer that. No, in terms of success, obviously one needs to define that. So I won't say that, we're in a position where I think the fact that one survived and there's work and you actually carry on this running here will account for success. So what's the highest high? We believe that God provides. Okay? We believe it, but when it's tested, that's something different. That's actually amazing. So again, in these 3 years, and there's a lot of stories like that. There was not 1 month where we sat around the table at the end of the month, and there was actually money in the account to pay anything. Not 1 month, okay, where we actually had reserves where we could do that, right? But every month we did pay everything, except the personal income. There's a lot of stuff to learn in that whole process, but everything was covered. So when you look back, you can see the provision. Okay? There's a lot of stories like when we sit around, we play with my phone, and the lady helped with the accounts and so on. What are we going to do? I don't know. And then the phone rings. A client that says you can do that invoice now, we'll pay it later today. So there's stories like that, okay? Right? And then roughly in 2018, I remember June, I went through a similar thing, and I actually said, well, this rugby is going to snap. Okay, that can't continue. And then it took almost a year and a half. Okay. And the rugby didn't snap. Right? So it's actually okay. It's nice to think back about it in a sense. So now, since about June last year, I really felt I need to pray about this thing, but anything that I touch just drifts away. No, that is. It's there. There's work, there's projects, everything's there, but it's just not here. It's just there. So we prayed about it, and then suddenly I started feeling it. And actually, since COVID started, we've been doing extremely well. All of those things. A lot of the things that disappeared in 3 years actually came back. Same projects. So I'm starting to feel, the fruit of everything that's been plowed in 3 years. For me, that's enough. So I'm starting to see that. I don't call it successful, but I'm starting to see the provision and so on. Without the faith, will be tested. But it's good to see the fruit at some stage.
Awesome.
I also, if I have to think of some high points, I can think of three. Starting with, so about a month and a half ago, after 18-month journey, we finally received word, and obviously after the whole lockdown, we finally received word that Berg gave the go-ahead to roll out to all the 2,400 stores, which is obviously amazing because you're not going to get a bigger store kind of retailer in the country or in the continent, which was amazing. Just a validation of an idea, especially for a company that is as stingy as they are. And second would be end of last year or last year when we got the go-ahead from our investors that are really amazing men of God. That really kind of, it was just this feeling of absolute support and provision from God that we not only received, a healthy investment, but also mentorship from these men that are going to carry us, into the business journey going forward in the future, if it works or it doesn't. So that was a massive success point. It's not just an idea; it's a validated, supported, kind of journey we're taking on. But most of all, and by far the biggest was, and the wonderful Nicole behind the camera actually recorded it about 2 years ago, was the prophecy that I got for the business. So quickly tell it in about a minute or two. So a few years ago, whilst still in this congregation, there was a prophecy team, and this was way before I even thought of the idea. I received a prophecy where the gentleman just said, listen, do you have a business? And I was like, yeah, I sell some clothes on, so I was like, yes, you did. And so he says, he's just, what do I do? I'm doing my articles, and he said, okay, cool. Well, he sees a massive company that's touching thousands of lives, and the way we're doing it is we changing the conventional way of, he saw a bow and an arrow and a target. Instead of the arrows coming out of the back, it's being taken from the foot, so it's on the ground and it's in a different way. We need to keep focused, and we get towards it. And so I wrote it down and completely forgot about it. And about almost a few months, let's say 6 months or so into the business, maybe even longer, I was going through the past few months or to a year of just what the Lord told me, and I saw this prophecy, and it was exactly what we started doing. We taken on a venture that was changing a lot of lives. By that time, we had about 30,000 users on the platform, and we were doing things differently. Not taking that into mind, but we were changing the status quo and being on the ground with these people instead of just a solution that's supposed to cater for everything. I had my tactics on moving the townships, helping people get connected to this, and we had to keep focused. We had so many people telling us build this, but the idea was really to keep focused on entry level, not go high up where the profit margins are more. And so when I read it, I just realized and knew this was from God. And so that's been our driving force throughout the past 2 years completely. The team knows it, and that's what we pray into being every day. I pray every morning at 8 o'clock, go to the session every Friday morning for the team, and it's really something we pray into competition every day, and that's the highest point of the company that we're running.
Sure. I think there's so many other questions that flow out of this that I want to ask, but I'm going to leave it to you guys for just now. I think, as we said earlier, we are obviously in a COVID situation, and the theme of this morning was sort of the entrepreneurial journey in a VUCA world, VUCA being volatile, uncertain. Now I'm forgetting what. Thank you, but yes. Net verhouding verloren gaan asseblief. So in taking that into consideration, we in this volatile circumstances, everything's changing the whole time. You guys have shared such amazing testimonies now, and I'm sure there's still books full of them. In Afrikaans we say, wanneer die tekkie die deur tref, and Johan sort of said that in Jules said you had to take his on. So I think this is really where it gets real, where things are happening in the midst of COVID, before COVID, post-COVID. How do you guys sort of, you've gone back to the drawing board a lot in the last 2 months, but how do you see yourself and your companies approaching an ever-changing environment, and just sort of for other guys that are entrepreneurs and having their own businesses, how do you sort of, not to advice, but sort of what is your thought process around navigating through this uncertain times, things constantly changing? How do you sort of approach it?
Good question. So our mantra, our vision is to employ the world, and that's what we're going to do. So in whichever way it happens, that's where we're heading. And I think in the time and the society where, besides the uncertainty of actual existence of companies before and everything's changing so quickly, you need to constantly be reminded of what is your main goal, and anything in between should be adaptable and agile, as Johan mentioned earlier. So that's really something that we, on a regular basis, so from daily interactions with clients to see this is the problem we're solving, is what we're offering at the moment still relevant to this, and that changes in a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. We have 3 monthly strategy meetings with our entire team as well, to hear, some of our operations people that work with only we call them job jacks, the job seekers, to the companies. They're going to hear something that we don't see, not being involved every day. So we really value kind of the input that we get from all 1,000 Facebook comments that we get almost every day of job seekers telling them we can't do this, we can't do this, why don't you do this, give us this. 2 companies that we regularly, probably on a monthly basis, ask, is this still working? How could this work better? Keeping in mind the problem that we're trying to solve. So I think it's, besides obviously, most importantly, going back to God and just asking for wisdom and asking for, His solution. It's really interacting with the people that are going to use this, with the people with the problems in mind, and to see how can we adapt to keep solving the problems of the business.
Yes, it's actually a difficult question. Coming in 3 years, and my background is planning, figuring out what might go wrong, mapping it, getting a path with that, and in quantifying the risk. That's a lot of the work that I do. And in the 3 years that we approaching this season now, all of those plans, and I said it before, just did not work. All of those plans did not work. Quantifying things, seeing what can now, plan for it, bring in a lot of the things, and it still just didn't work. Reading up a lot about how do you handle situations like this. You alluded to that. Is the fact that there is actually only the one that can see what's coming, that can navigate a road through it. We can't see. Mathematicians spend hundreds of years trying to figure out how we can use what we know to predict the future. Okay, and it just doesn't work. So now it's a dangerous thing to partner with God on a journey like this because, you can't do cheap signaling in the whole process. But I don't see other way. You've got to have someone that can look there, tell you what the path is. Yes, be adaptable in that, but we need to follow that very rigidly because suddenly, so you've got to hear from him. I don't know of another way to go through those things. Unless you can see the future.
So, something I just remember now is one of the main things that I think that my co-founder and I have done, and this kind of goes the other way. So, because we completely, dreaming and ever changing, we are very, kind of not reluctant, clear to change. I mean, our pricing proposal strategy has changed 5 times over the past few years. And what we've done is we've surrounded ourselves, the rest of our entire team are realists and kind of more stable, pillars. So we say we're the stars and they're the pillars, but that's what our investors always say. And they're just going to keep us grounded. So that really helped as well to be able to adapt to change, but in a sustainable way.
I think immediately Shane, he tells the story a lot from the book from Jim Collins, Good to Great, of General Stockdale, who was in this concentration camp. And he came out alive afterwards, and Jim Collins and the guys, they interviewed him and they asked him, so just from your experience, who were the guys that survived? And he said, the realists. And how's that possible? What about the guys who always, by Easter, we're going to be out of here, by Christmas, we're going to be out of here, or my circumstances are going to change, or the cash flow is going to change, or whatever the case may be. But that constant disappointment with actually the guys who didn't make it. But the realist, he was the realist, General Stockdale, where he said you have to face the brutal realities. And I think that's exactly what you guys just said now, is having that faith that God has put me on this path. I know He sees the bigger picture. Yes, I've got my optimism, and don't lose that. You need that. You need to have that faith and that drive to go forward, to face that brutal realities of what do I have to do now, having that team to ground you and navigate through this changing time. So really powerful. Thanks, guys. So, ladies and gents, now it's over to you. We want to put them on the spot a little bit there. If they had questions before the time, so they could think about it a little bit. But now, any questions from your end? You just put up your hand and I'll bring you the mic.
Thanks, guys. I have a question. I don't think it's a very easy one. What would you say are maybe the pros and cons of investment, and at what point, how would you know you need investment? You might be a bigger reward, but you're going to grow faster, but you're taking on a bigger risk. Because then if you don't grow, you're losing something.
That's a super good question. It's something we want to go forward with also. So it was really cool. One investors, easy for him to say, but before they actually invested, he said, listen guys, everything anyway belongs to Jesus. So why does it matter who's holding the equity? And easier said than done if he's going to get some of the equity. But it is so true. And what we realized, and I mean, this was even before we, before we approached them, they were our seed round. So before that, we had angel investors and even the friends, families, and fools round. And so what we realized is, besides your kind of cliche 1% of 100 billion, is bigger than 100% of nothing. And but so the idea was, we know we can't do this alone. And so, what advice and what strategic partnerships can we get? And Obviously, then you can get your conventional, hypergrowth blitz scaling, where you say, cool, the more investment I quickly get, the more cash I can burn, the quicker I can grow. But we've taken a more agile approach, the more, what do you call it, lean startup, where what we did was to see, okay, cool, what do we need for the next 3 months? And so we took in investments sticky to sticky, so that every time we receive a small investment, we don't have to give away too much, but we can grow in that time to by the time we receive our next investment, we've grown so much more. And obviously, in a company that's scalable, your market value kind of, or your market cap kind of goes up quite a bit with every bit of traction that you receive. So what we did was really just, instead of in the beginning, what a lot of people do is give me a lot of money and I'm going to kind of give away too much in the beginning, and then you tie yourself in with maybe an investor that's not as invested. I mean, I have a lot of friends that did that and they had to give away the money because they gave away too much in the beginning, so it stops investors in the future from coming in. So it was really literally every 3 months, we went to an investor and said, okay, cool, so this is the traction that we've got until now. Every time the value of the company increased a bit more, and every time we realized how valuable it is to have a new investor with new insight come on board, with obviously limited involvement here or there. Only our final investors actually got a seat on the board, but we really do value the input of all the investors. So yeah, basically, for sure, just the external value besides the money is mostly more important than
Yes, I can't add much more to that, but it's extremely case specific. What do you want to use the money for? Is it for growth or cash flow, or it's very, very specific.
Yeah, excuse me, also. So these last investors that we got on board, we got them on board for their mentorship, not for their money. Even though they received by far the biggest equity stake that we've given away, it was really just for their mentorship. And I mean, not a day in life goes by without regretting that, because the value we've received, not just company-wise, but personally for me, spiritually-wise, and for my family, it's just incredible.
Mag ik een vraag stellen?
This is in particular, I think. What advice would you give to yourself when you were starting knowing what you know now? Do you plan something differently? or
Don't do it.
I'll answer that video.
Yeah, it's difficult because I really didn't know what I was looking for. So I actually don't know. I think carefully. If it wasn't for the fact that I actually had some form of a calling in this, I would have done it.
I think for me, don't be so greedy, and don't fake it till you make it. There's a lot of fake it till you make it in entrepreneurship, but be vulnerable. I think there's a difference between, and we see that now with the clients we approach, we're super vulnerable with them to, and even our investors say, we don't know, and they value that earnestly and that truth so much that they're really willing to take on partnership. So I think in the beginning we were a lot like, we're not even going to raise funding because we're going to get enough income to send ourselves, and everything's going to belong to us. Yes, but as you know, if I knew back then that, listen, open your doors and your kind of vulnerability to receive advice from wherever, it's really going to open doors for you, not just because of the vulnerability and the trust you're showing, but because you're going to actually learn.
Maybe another thing, I think I would have started slow. Yeah? Because we get taught, and when you read and so on, you have to plan for growth, and it's growth strategies, and you need to get capital in for growth and things like that. And I actually think it needs to get its momentum on a small scale, and then from there on. Again, don't be greedy in the beginning, but I think I would have started much slower. It might have been a bit better in 3 years. That's what I think.
Sorry, I'd like to know what a job like. You said you changed the approach now with Corona. Is it just, what did you do differently? You didn't go into details. So is it just different bigger clients that you've approached or what else?
I was hoping someone would ask that question because I'm super excited to share. Not that I think it would resonate with all of you so much because you obviously don't know the exact platform. But so what we've done in essence is, up until now we were kind of selling a generic solution. Everyone get into the JobJack platform, it's going to be great, it's an aggregated solution for your company. Instead of having to go through all these paper CVs, or email PDF CVs or whatever the case may be, because our algorithms and everything filters the relevant candidates for you, which just saves you a lot of time. So that basically our previous sell was, instead of 4 hours, you're going to spend 5 minutes of your time on the recruitment process, and instead of 3 weeks, it's going to take you 2 days. Then you have someone in your store that's relevant, that's working. And so, that on itself is already a major benefit. But we were pressing the JobJack brand down everywhere. It was like JobJack, which is a great one. It's wonderful, for the world. But what we saw was the need was that people want to have their own solution. People people are narcissists, so people want to feel that they've solved the problem. And that there's nothing wrong with that at all. But we said, cool, we need to provide the solution. We don't need a JobJack isn't the solution, if that makes sense. So what we've done, we've packaged the whole thing so that we've added the functionality for each company to have their own platform. Still on JobJack, but it's each company's brand and logo. So whether it's a KFC, whether it's a Hungry Lion, whether it's a Yuppie Chef, whether it's Nibbly Bits, each company has their own solution that they can actually provide for job seekers and for their own people. So they feel they are solving a solution. So it's literally enabling companies to have their own solution and to do what they've been doing in a much better way. So we really just kind of received the wisdom, and it's completely from the Lord. We were praying for wisdom, like weeks at a time. And God just gave us this insight. Just give them what they want, not what you think they want, not what you know they want. So if that makes sense, I can elaborate after this.
Hello. I know that in order to approach new clients or make your brand known, it's important to pitch yourself. So can you maybe share how that process went for you and how did you get to your maybe perfect pitch, or do you have multiple still?
Yeah, this would have been a different conversation if my wife was here. In my industry, it's actually relationship is extremely important. So the brand, all of that doesn't mean so much as the person. Okay, so with that, time needs to flow, and my wife will tell you that I do not make a very good first impression in any case. So for me, it's something that comes over time with each specific client. But my clients are all long-term clients. It's not a one transaction thing. So openness and trust is the key of those things. So how do you develop trust relationship with the client over certain things? And for me, it's just one thing. I cannot not be open in anything. So whenever I make a mistake, or whatever I feel, the way I talk, it's just me. I've got no veneer. My wife will also tell you that. Or covering or lipstick, or any of that, that I bring into the business place. It's just me. And I've found that it opens up. So that's what I've got nothing more too often than my expertise and just being me. And in that, people trust me, and that's the base of my client. I had experiences in that where in the previous company that I worked, there was something happened. I was actually accused of fraud. Okay, it was in a contract and so on. Actually, I found out years later something did happen, but there was a forensic. That client is still one of my biggest clients through that whole processes. And even after that, just by, what do I say? Here I am, I'm still working for you, I'm still doing my best. I tell you it's not me, but the system will sort that out. And believe it or not. But so for me, that's all I have. They need to trust me. I need to show them exactly who I am. The brand doesn't mean so much in our industry. Very personal.
Yeah, so I wish there was a perfect pitch. And Zoom is making it all the more difficult actually, because there's so much in kind of physical behavior, it's just so much communication. The book we give to each of our employees as they start is How to Influence People. Most of that you find in the Bible anyway, but it just puts it out in a nice structured way. That Pitch Anything is a really good book, and I forgot the last one, but it's obviously not that good. But besides that, I'd say, because we see new clients every day. Yesterday I had 3 meetings with 3 new clients, from McDonald's to a small Sasol garage. So it's different kind of clients that you need to impress them within half an hour, 20 minutes. We say we're going to get them used 20 minutes at a time. And so it's basically, the main approach we use is to let them speak, let them say what their problem is, because most of the time they're describing our solution as they describe the problem. So it's just getting that out of them. Obviously, that vulnerability I spoke of beforehand isn't kind of a massive plus point that people see, so the trust. And when you can, after that, it's building relationships. So I email people on a 3 daily basis. So every 3rd day, email checking how it goes, or on a weekly kind of basis. And so once you kind of get that meeting to pitch up there with a smile on your face, and hopefully a product that obviously helps solve the solution, but giving them the space to feel that they can chat, not shoving something down their throat, is I think 90% of the success.
People love buying, but they're being sold to them.
So, Christiaan, you're married, Johan, you're married, you have 2 children. Tell me something about the pressure of entrepreneurship and family, and how do you deal with it?
So my wife is, from the get-go, used to be taking on more than I could chew. So when I started JobJack, I was doing my articles and doing my honors, because I didn't do much of a good time in varsity. And obviously then starting, and we've just been married for a few months. So she was kind of used to it to the get-go, but what I told her before we got married, and still every day, is that I always watch my dad bring work home with him. So he never switched off and never connected. So my rule is after 6 o'clock, my time is hers. Sometimes obviously we'll do something, I'll go exercise and then maybe up to 7. But so basically in the evenings and most weekends, in all honesty, I can tell you over the past 6 years that I've worked, so 3 of them almost been at JobJack and 3 articles, I've probably worked over 3 weekends, maybe 4, and probably only worked after 7 o'clock, probably 5 times. It's difficult. Vroeg opstaan betekent but because I've laid that foundation, sometimes I have put myself into a corner where it's really necessary, and at that time already communicate that to her and also, but at the end of the day, and that's where we surveys to help our investors with us, is family comes first. If you're not doing this for your family, if your family's not coming first, then what is this for? Because obviously God's put something on my heart, and it's really a solution that's going to help a lot of people. But if I don't have that support, and if I can't be faithful in the little things, then how can I be faithful in the world?
Yes. My wife is also has her own business. So there's two of us. We had to lean a lot more on her in this 3 years that I've just described. So yes, there's a lot of pressure. So I go into my denial space, and then I just ignore it. That doesn't really work. But also not being able to provide larger family, starting to inquire what's going on here. So there's a lot of pressure. And how do you handle it? You communicate, but it's been tough. It has been tough on her because two of us work that out, and one still looks at the family. So it's just been really tough. Actually, fighting breaking point on that side, it's really tough. So how do you survive it? I think we did. I don't know. So it's communication, it's putting boundaries in place, but it's not always possible. One of us working at evenings because there's other things also to be done. Really tough. Really just tough. I don't know.
Thanks, guys, especially for your vulnerability, obviously. Guys, I think we've got time for one more question. We're going to finish off. There will be any more questions from you guys?
Hi guys, I just want to ask, how would you advise, obviously like in the current climate, new business startup, how would you advise entrepreneurs approaching stakeholders regarding needing to adjust their projections? Obviously a 5-year plan, middle of last year, is not the same 5-year plan that you have now. Firstly with your stakeholders and secondly with your partners, your business partners and your partnering investor. How would you, I don't know, I know it's a very in-depth answer, but maybe 1 or 2 points that you would advise approaching that scenario. Thanks.
So just to clarify the question, how do we approach that kind of adjustment?
Yeah.
So we've put out a 5-year plan, but it needs to change.
Yeah, and to explain
That to our investors or stakeholders.
It has to change. You cannot stick to the status quo that we were in last year.
Okay. So I think really in our circles of what we see with smaller companies, is there a fixed 5-year plan? From the get-go, it's communicated to all our stakeholders. So from our investors to myself and my co-founder to our employees, that we're going to put out a 3-year plan, but it's actually a 6-month plan. And every 6 months it's adjusted. So everyone knows every 6 months it's going to adjust. It's just immensely. So it probably even maybe sometimes every 3 months. And so from the get-go, everyone has that expectation. I think that's a logic. I think what does help is that our stakeholders know that we have some background in finance and in figures, which always helps out. In my opinion, I mean, but so I think to be able to communicate that in a vulnerable way. Once again, I think it's always not saying this is how it's going to be, this is what it is done. To say, cool, we've put up this first draft, let's chat through it. This is what we feel needs to change because of these circumstances that happen, and this is our realistic expectation for what's about to go down. But so we've never put out a cash flow projection or a revenue projection or whatever because we for longer than 3 years because we know everything's going to change. Even at the moment, or let's say for the past 2 years, it's actually only been a 1-year projection, because we know it's impossible to kind of, I mean, we can reach for the stars and it's great. Now, in our first pitch to investors, we had a 5-year plan, and by the end of year 5, which would be now in 2 years, JobTech would be globally dominating the employment space. We'll get there in Jesus' name. But so that's kind of the expectation that we had, and the expectation that we gave across to everyone. It's only a year, and it's actually only 6 months, and this is one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, maybe just to add on that, I agree with the part of the way that I will say it. Got to be extremely open about everything surrounding the business. So what we've done in this years, and it's actually, I'll also put it as one of the highlights. Everyone that I employ, we about 10 in the office, they're still there. Every month, they knew exactly what was going on in the business, where we are, what's the difficulties. Similar with certain partners that was part of it. Every month, know exactly what's going on and the input and what we're going to go and do forward. For instance, we had this discussion a lot of times. What are we going to do? This doesn't look good for the next 3-4 months. Guys, I think you're open and free to look for other work. And then the feedback is simple, let's make it work. Let's stick it out, let's look at this and get something. Everyone around the table, open discussion, open business plan. Everyone knows exactly where it came from, the start, where we're going, and everybody will then know that things need to change because the whole world changed. It's got to be open from the start. I don't, again, stripping the bling of business plans and so on. The buying, the spreadsheets, what's going on in them? What are we actually transacting? Is those things real? It's got to be a very simple, blingless thing to present. It's got to be open. Then issues like that don't, it's maybe a discussion in any case.
Sorry, Scott, just turn my arm for another last question.
I just want to ask one question to the young man on the right. And the old man on the left. Joking. The question is, but I think I'm going to let him off the hook and anybody can answer, Shane can answer, or who can answer. Whoever feels, I think it's a good question. Is what is the entrepreneur's biggest challenge? There's not a right or wrong answer, but I think the answer I've been sitting for like a couple of years. It'll be nice if you guys can answer me. I can maybe also answer, but yeah.
Entrepreneurs' biggest challenge.
Monday morning.
I was waiting for that. Yeah, there is not a right answer. I think, I mean, it's going to be difficult because with our faith as our cornerstone, it's just, walking into what God's called me to do. And that's coincidentally in a business perspective. So I think any entrepreneur that has a godly kind of focus on God as a cornerstone is to kind of live out what God's called me to do. And the rest he's going to provide for the rest. I think if you're looking at it in a more business aspect, the answer I've received a lot for that question is finding product market fit. Because it doesn't matter if you have a solution, but there's no one who's going to use it. So that's something I've received a lot. I don't know if that's the right answer. I don't know. I don't have an answer that's popping up into my head. And so that's it. I just think of Jesus.
I've got the privilege of thanking the two of you, Johan and Christiaan, for being vulnerable and sharing your journey with us. As entrepreneurs, I think we can all relate. We feel so at home because we've all been at the different phases and we can get inspiration from such as the camaraderie because it can be very lonely. So I'd just like to honor you for being vulnerable and sharing your journey with us, and we look forward to seeing your successes. So let's just deliver something.
Thank you, Johan, Christiaan. We really appreciate your time being here. Let's thank you to you for coming out. We know it's not always easy taking up 8 to 10 on a weekday, but I know you're entrepreneurs, so I know you're going to start work at 10. Okay, that's nice. Listen, there's a few muffins left at the back. We've got about half an hour for you guys just to network, spend some time. As we said, one thing we really believe with City Gates is that there's really a lot of power in networking and just spending time together, just as I just said now, the camaraderie, just soundboarding with each other, getting to know each other, listening to each other's stories. So thank you very much for being here, and we're looking forward to seeing you next time. So we are planning to host the next one on the 25th of September. I think it's a Friday, if I'm not mistaken, so hopefully that's a little bit easier than a Tuesday. We've got a nice pipeline of possible speakers. We haven't confirmed them yet. I think Quibus might be the one that we might definitely have. Yes, so 25th of September, please diarise that so long. We're going to sort of continue this journey of this topic of the entrepreneurial journey, but we're going to put a different spin on it. We get different perspectives on it. So we say business as normal or business not so normal. I think things are not so normal at the moment, so it will be exciting to hear a bit of the perspectives of a few different speakers, and we having a few ladies that are going to join us as well on the panel next time. So thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. Bye bye.